I was working the night shift at the coffee shop on Christmas Eve when my phone lit up with 5 missed calls from my parents. My name is Naomi, and at 22, I never thought I'd be spending Christmas serving peppermint lattes instead of being home. The latest text from Mom read, "Please come home. We miss you. It's Christmas." Ironic how they suddenly missed me after taking the $32,000 college fund Dee saved for 4 years to pay for my sister's shopping sprees. Let me know where you're watching from, and if my story resonates with you, please hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you might want to hear how I finally stood up for myself after a lifetime of being second best. Growing up in our middle class home in Michigan, I always knew where I stood in the family hierarchy. My parents, both high school teachers with modest salaries, somehow always found money for my younger sister Madison's extravagant activities. Ballet lessons, piano recitals, summer camps in Europe, the latest phones and designer clothes. Meanwhile, I learned early on that if I wanted something, I'd have to earn it myself. "Naomi, you understand that Madison needs these opportunities," my mother would say whenever I questioned the disparity. "She's gifted. These experiences will shape her future." I started working when I was 16, shelving books at the local bookstore after school for minimum wage. By senior year, I was juggling 3 jobs: the bookstore on weekends, waitressing at a family restaurant 3 nights a week, and babysitting whenever I could fit it in. Every dollar went straight into my college savings account. My dream was NYU, specifically their journalism program. I'd been writing for the school newspaper since freshman year, and had built quite a portfolio. My guidance counselor believed I had a shot at a partial scholarship, but we both knew I'd need substantial savings to cover the rest. "New York is expensive," my grandmother would warn during our weekly phone calls. She was the only one who truly supported my ambitions. "But you're making smart choices, Naomi. I'm proud of you." When Grandma passed away during my junior year, she left me $5,000 specifically for my education. I cried for days, not just from grief, but from the overwhelming feeling that someone had finally prioritized my dreams. By the spring of my senior year, I had managed to save $32,000 through countless double shifts, missed school dances, and saying no to movies and mall trips with friends. It wasn't enough for 4 years at NYU, but combined with my partial scholarship and plans to work part-time in the city, I had calculated that I could make it work. The acceptance letter came on a rainy Tuesday in April. I screamed so loud. Our elderly neighbor came knocking to check if everything was okay. My parents offered lukewarm congratulations, immediately expressing concern about the cost. "We should talk about more affordable options," Dad suggested, barely glancing at the acceptance packet I'd so proudly displayed on the kitchen table. "I have a plan," I assured them, pulling out the spreadsheet I'd created. "I've calculated all the expenses, and with my savings scholarship and working part-time, I can make this work." They seemed surprised at my thoroughness, though not entirely convinced. Madison, then 19, and in her freshman year at the state university, only 30 minutes from our house, rolled her eyes and changed the subject to her upcoming dance showcase. That night, I stayed up late adding final touches to my financial plan, dreaming of New York cityscapes and bylines with my name. Just a few more months of saving, and I'd be ready to start my new life. The discovery came on an ordinary Tuesday in May, just 3 weeks before graduation. I'd gone to the bank to deposit my latest paycheck when the teller gave me a concerned look. "There's a problem with your account," she said quietly, turning the computer screen so I could see. Where there should have been 32,000, the balance showed 212. "There's a mistake," I insisted, my heartbeat accelerating. "Please check again." She pulled up the transaction history. 4 days earlier, $31,787.54 had been withdrawn, in person, at this very branch. "Do you recognize this withdrawal?" she asked. I felt dizzy. The signature on the withdrawal slip was my father's. I drove home in a daze, tears blurring my vision. My parents' car was in the driveway, and I practically ran through the front door. "What did you do?" I demanded, finding them both in the kitchen preparing dinner. "My money is gone, all of it." The bank showed me the withdrawal slip with Dad's signature. The silence that followed confirmed my worst fears before they even spoke. "Sit down, Naomi," my father finally said, his voice strangely calm. We need to talk. We had no choice, my mother added, not meeting my eyes. Madison got herself into some trouble. The story unfolded like a nightmare. Madison had secretly opened multiple credit cards, maxing them out on online shopping sprees, concert tickets, weekend trips with friends, and expensive dance workshops she'd never told them about. She'd been hiding the bills for months, but finally confessed when collection agencies started calling. The interest was astronomical, Dad explained. Almost $35,000 in debt. They were threatening legal action. So you took my money? My voice cracked. Everything I worked for, family helps family, Mom said firmly. Madison made mistakes, but she's young. This debt would ruin her credit score for life. And what about my life? I shouted louder than I'd ever spoken to them. My college, my future. We'll pay you back, Dad promised. By August before your semester starts. We'll take out a home equity loan. Madison appeared in the doorway looking more annoyed than ashamed. Why is everyone yelling? I stared at her in disbelief. They took my college fund to pay off your shopping addiction. She shrugged. They said they'll pay you back. It's not that big a deal. In that moment, something broke inside me, a lifelong crack finally splitting wide open. I saw with perfect clarity how it had always been, and how it would always be if I stayed. I'm going to my room, I managed to say, my voice eerily calm. Don't follow me. That night I cried until there were no tears left, clutching my NYU acceptance letter like a broken promise. By July, the truth I had suspected revealed itself. There would be no home equity loan. The bank had denied my parents' application due to their existing debt, and the fact that they had already refinanced twice. We just need more time, Mom pleaded during the family meeting they called. Maybe you could defer your acceptance for a year, or start at community college and transfer later. You lied to me, I said flatly. You never had a plan to pay me back. That's not fair, Dad argued. We tried. We're still trying. I understand you're upset, Mom added. But Madison needed help. What were we supposed to do? Let her future be ruined? I looked at Madison, who was texting on her phone, barely paying attention to the conversation that was determining my future. What about my future? I asked quietly. Madison glanced up. You can still go to college, just not your fancy first choice. I'm sorry you're so mad, but holding grudges isn't healthy, Naomi. The audacity of her non-apology, delivered without even putting down her phone, was the final straw. I'm moving out, I announced. My parents protested immediately. I was being dramatic, I couldn't afford it, I was making a rash decision out of anger. What would people think? But my mind was made up. Two of my friends from high school, Jasmine and Taylor, had an apartment near the local community college and needed a third roommate. The rent would be tight, but I had been saving most of my recent paychecks, knowing deep down that my parents' promises were empty. This isn't just about the money, I explained as I packed my belongings 2 days later. It's about trust. It's about the fact that you've always chosen her. Always. That's ridiculous, Mom protested. We've always loved you both equally. Equal love, maybe. Equal treatment, never. My dad tried a different approach. Everyone makes mistakes, Naomi. Learning to forgive is part of growing up. I paused, folding a t-shirt with deliberate care. I'm not the one who needs to grow up in this situation. Madison stomped into my room without knocking. So you're just abandoning the family over money? This isn't about money, I replied. This is about respect, something you've never shown me. I left that afternoon with 3 suitcases and a broken heart. I enrolled in the community college, committed to taking general education courses that would transfer eventually. I picked up more hours at the coffee shop and started looking for freelance writing opportunities online. My plan was simple: survive, save, and eventually find my way back to my dream, even if the path looked different now. The hardest part wasn't the long hours or the cramped apartment or even deferring NYU. It was setting boundaries with my family. I limited contact to brief texts, letting them know I was okay. I declined invitations to Sunday dinners. I made it clear that while I wasn't cutting them off completely, I needed space to heal. You can't avoid us forever, My mother texted in September. We're still your family. Family doesn't take from family, I replied before silencing my phone. The months that followed my departure from home were some of the hardest and most transformative of my life. Our apartment was tiny, with a perpetually leaking bathroom faucet and neighbors who seemed to hold band practice at 2 a.m. I worked the opening shift at the coffee shop from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m., attended classes from 2 to 6 p.m., then often picked up evening shifts at a bookstore downtown. Sleep became a luxury. Home-cooked meals were replaced by coffee shop leftovers and microwave ramen. There were nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I'd made the right decision, if pride was worth this struggle. But slowly, unexpectedly, I began to build a life that felt authentically mine. It started with meeting Sarah, an editor at a local lifestyle magazine, who became a regular at the coffee shop. She always ordered the same thing, a large cold brew black with an almond croissant. One day, she caught me scribbling in my journal during a rare quiet moment. "You're always writing," she observed, "working on something special." I hesitated before showing her my journal. It was filled with observations about the people who came into the shop. Little stories I'd constructed about their lives based on their orders and demeanors. "This is good," she said, genuine surprise in her voice. "Really good, actually. You ever think about writing professionally?" That conversation changed everything. Sarah became my mentor, helping me polish my writing and offering me small freelance assignments for the magazine. Nothing major at first, just event listings and community news. But it was a start. It was experience. It was a byline. With Sarah's encouragement, I started a blog chronicling my journey as a self-supporting student. I wrote about financial independence, about recalibrating dreams without abandoning them, about finding family in unexpected places. To my surprise, people responded. Comments poured in from other students in similar situations, from parents trying to understand their children's perspectives, from people who simply appreciated honest storytelling. At the coffee shop, I formed an unexpected friendship with Jake, another barista who was working his way through an engineering degree. Unlike my other coworkers who treated the job as temporary, Jake took pride in perfecting latte art and remembering regular customers' names and orders. "My dad wanted me to go straight into his construction business," he confided one slow afternoon. "Told me college was a waste of time and money. Hasn't spoken to me since I enrolled." "How do you deal with that?" I asked. He shrugged. "I remind myself that I'm building my life for me, not for him. Some days that helps more than others." Jake became part of my new chosen family, along with my roommates and Sarah. We celebrated small victories together. My first magazine feature, his first A on a particularly difficult exam, birthdays and holidays that might otherwise have been lonely. The community college surprised me with its quality of education and dedicated professors. My journalism professor, Dr. Russell, took a special interest in my work and nominated me for a small scholarship for the spring semester. It wasn't enough to change my financial situation dramatically, but it was validation that I was on the right path. By November, 6 months after leaving home, I had established a routine that, while exhausting, felt sustainable. My blog was gaining traction, and Sarah had hinted at a possible paid internship at the magazine in the spring. I was building a portfolio and making connections in the local media scene. Most importantly, I was discovering a strength in myself I hadn't known existed. My parents continued to call and text their messages, alternating between guilt trips and awkward attempts at normal conversation. I responded minimally, protecting the fragile peace he'd established. Madison never reached out at all, which stung in a way I wasn't ready to examine too closely. I was surviving, perhaps even thriving in my own small way. But the approaching holiday season cast a long shadow over my newfound independence. Thanksgiving had been manageable, a potluck with friends who also couldn't go home for various reasons. Christmas, however, loomed like a test I wasn't sure I could pass. The encounter happened at the Highland Mall on a Saturday in early December. I'd gone to find an affordable gift for Sarah, a small token of appreciation for all she'd done for me. I was browsing a bookstore when I heard a familiar laugh. Madison stood a few feet away, surrounded by shopping bags from high-end stores. She was with two friends I'd never seen before, all of them dressed in expensive winter wear that made my secondhand coat feel suddenly shabby. I considered slipping away unnoticed, but something pulled me toward her instead. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the need for closure. Maybe it was the tiny, persistent hope that shed changed. Madison, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. She turned, surprise flickering across her face before she composed herself. Naomi. Wow. I didn't know you still shopped here. I live nearby now, I replied. How are you? Great. She beamed, lifting her bag slightly. Just doing some early Christmas shopping. Oh, these are my friends from the study abroad program, Lisa and Audrey. Study abroad program, I echoed. Yeah, we're going to Florence next semester. Madison continued, seemingly oblivious to my expression. It's this amazing art history program. Mom and Dad surprised me with it after I decided to switch my major. Again. She laughed as if this were charming. The familiar wave of invisibility washed over me, the feeling it experienced throughout childhood whenever Madison was in the spotlight. But this time it was accompanied by something new, anger. They paid for that? I asked, my voice sharp enough to make her friends exchange uncomfortable glances. Madison's smile faltered. Well, yeah, it's educational. So is NYU, I replied, which I had to give up because they emptied my savings account to pay off your secret credit card debt. Oh my God, Madison sighed dramatically. Are you still on about that? They said they'll pay you back eventually. Eventually doesn't help me now. It doesn't help me with the 2 jobs I'm working while taking full-time classes. It doesn't help me with the dream school I had to defer. Madison rolled her eyes, turning to her friends. My sister is super dramatic. She moved out because Mom and Dad helped me with a little financial situation. $32,000 is not a little situation, I said, my voice rising. Several shoppers turned to look at us. That's 4 years of my life. That's thousands of hours of work. While you were at parties and shopping, I was serving coffee and waiting tables and babysitting to build that fund. You chose to work those jobs, Madison shot back. Nobody forced you. I worked because I knew Mom and Dad wouldn't pay for my education the way they're paying for yours. I worked because I had dreams that mattered to me, even if they didn't matter to anyone else in our family. Madison's friends were backing away, clearly uncomfortable. We're going to check out that store, one of them murmured. Well, catch up with you. When they were gone, Madison's facade cracked. Thanks a lot. Now my friends think my family's crazy. Your family is crazy, I replied. We're dysfunctional Madison. Can't you see that? They bail you out no matter what you do, and they expect me to just accept it. They love me, she said defensively. They love me too, I countered. But they don't respect me, and you never have either. Madison shifted her bags, her expression hardening. Mom cries about you, you know. Dad checks your blog every day to see if you're okay. You're tearing the family apart because you can't get over yourself. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. I'm tearing the family apart. That's rich coming from the person who secretly racked up tens of thousands in debt and let our parents steal my future to fix it. It wasn't stealing. It was borrowing. Without permission. Without a realistic plan to pay it back. While still spending thousands to send you to Europe. What would you call it? Madison stared at me, then softened her tone. Look, just come home for Christmas. Mom and Dad miss you. It's weird without you there. We can all talk this out and go back to normal. And there it was, the moment of truth, the invitation I might have once accepted. But the thought of returning to that house, to the old dynamics, to being the responsible one who sacrifices, while Madison continued her consequence, free life made my chest tighten. There is no going back to normal, I said quietly. Because normal wasn't healthy. Normal was me always giving and all of you always taking. I'm building a new normal now. So that's it. You're choosing to be alone at Christmas to prove some point. I shook my head. I'm not alone, Madison. I've made a new family who value me for who I am. And I'm not trying to prove a point. I'm trying to live a life where I'm not constantly sacrificed for someone else. She stared at me for a long moment. You've changed, she finally said, like it was an accusation. I nodded. Yes, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. As I walked away, I realized she was right. I had changed. The Naomi who had left home in July would never have had the courage to speak those truths. For the first time, I felt not just anger or hurt, but pride. I was becoming someone stronger. As Christmas drew closer, the calls and messages from my parents intensified. The coffee shop was decorated with twinkling lights and pine garlands, and every holiday song that played reminded me of Christmases past. The apartment I shared with Jasmine and Taylor had a small artificial tree in the corner, but they were both leaving to visit their families on December 23rd. "You're welcome to come home with me," Jasmine offered as she packed. "My parents always make way too much food, and they won't mind an extra person." "Thanks, but I picked up extra shifts at the shop," I explained. "The holiday pay is too good to pass up." This was true, but not the whole truth. I wasn't ready to be a guest in someone else's family Christmas, a charity case to be pitied. On Christmas Eve, I was midway through my shift when my phone vibrated with yet another call from home. It'd been ignoring them all day, but this time something compelled me to step into the back room and answer. "Naomi?" My father's voice cracked with emotion. "Thank you for picking up." "I'm at work, Dad. I can't talk long." I know, We miss you, sweetheart. The house doesn't feel right without you." I closed my eyes, fighting the wave of homesickness. "Dad." "Please," he interrupted. "Just listen. We've made terrible mistakes. What we did to you was wrong, taking your money without real permission, making promises we couldn't keep." He paused, and I heard him take a shaky breath. "Madison dropped out of college last week." This was unexpected. Why?" "She failed most of her classes this semester. She was on academic probation from last year, and now she's lost her partial scholarship. All that money for tutors and special programs, and He trailed off. "The study abroad program?" I asked. "Canceled. She never even completed the application properly. She just saw her friends were doing it and told us she'd been accepted." The familiar pattern was painfully clear. "And you're just now realizing there's a problem?" "We should have seen it sooner," he admitted. "We should have listened to you years ago when you tried to tell us Madison needed boundaries, not bailouts." He paused again. "We were so busy trying to help her succeed that we never noticed you were the one actually doing it. On your own. Despite us, not because of us." The raw honesty in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't the defensive father I'd confronted in July. "We're not asking you to forget what happened," he continued. "We're asking for a chance to make it right, to start rebuilding trust, beginning with Christmas dinner tomorrow." I heard movement in the background, then my mother's voice. "Naomi, are you there?" "I'm here, Mom." "We miss you so much," she said, her voice thick with tears. "The house is so quiet without you. Please consider coming home tomorrow, just for dinner. We can drive to your apartment to pick you up, if that's easier." I hesitated. Part of me longed for reconciliation, for the comfort of home despite everything. Another part remembered all too well the pain of betrayal. "Is Madison sorry?" I asked. "Has she acknowledged what she did?" The silence that followed was answer enough. But then I heard a third voice, distant but clear. "Why should I apologize for something Mom and Dad decided to do? It's not my fault they took her money." My mother's muffled voice. "Madison, please, we're trying to fix things." "By making me the bad guy, great plan, Mom." The knot in my stomach tightened. Nothing had changed. Not really. My parents might be having a moment of clarity, but Madison was the same, and they were still protecting her. "I can't come tomorrow," I said finally. "I'm working a double shift." "On Christmas?" My mother sounded horrified. "People still want coffee on holidays, Mom, and I need the money." I paused, then added, "I need to build my savings back up." The silence on the other end was heavy. "I appreciate the invitation," I continued softer now, "but I'm not ready. Maybe next year when we've all had more time to heal." "Will you at least open the gifts we sent?" my father asked. "We mailed them to your apartment last week." I hadn't even checked the mail in days. I'll look for them, I promised. After we hung up, I returned to my shift with a strange mix of emotions: sadness for what might have been, relief that I'd held my boundary, and underneath it all, a surprising sense of peace. For perhaps the first time in my life, I'd put my own well-being first without guilt or apology. The coffee shop was busy with last-minute shoppers and people escaping family gatherings. I moved through the rest of my shift in a daze, thinking about my father's words. They had finally seen the pattern. Too late for my college fund, too late for NYU, but maybe not too late for our relationship. If only Madison could see it too. As I wiped down the counter after the last customer left, I realized this wasn't the Christmas I'd imagined for myself a year ago. It was lonelier in some ways, but in others, it held a different kind of richness. The knowledge that I was standing on my own 2 feet, bending but not breaking. The coffee shop closed early on Christmas Eve at 8 p.m. instead of the usual midnight. I locked the doors, finished the closing tasks, and changed out of my coffee-stained uniform in the employee bathroom. The streets were quiet as I walked to the bus stop, holiday lights reflecting off the fresh dusting of snow. I'd agreed to open the shop the next morning at 10 a.m. The owner, Mrs. Patterson, had apologized profusely for scheduling me on Christmas Day, but I had assured her I preferred working to sitting alone in my apartment. "At least you won't be alone for the whole day," Shed said cryptically. But I'd assumed she was referring to the handful of regular customers who had nowhere else to go on holidays. I was unlocking the shop the next morning when I noticed several figures huddled at the door, stamping their feet against the cold. "Surprise!" Sarah called as I approached. She was holding a small gift bag and wearing a ridiculously bright Christmas sweater. Beside her stood Jake, carrying what looked like a dish covered in foil, and behind them Dr. Russell from the community college, and two of my regular customers, an elderly couple named Frank and Edith, who came in every Tuesday and Thursday. "What are you all doing here?" I asked, fumbling with the keys. "We couldn't let you spend Christmas alone," Jake explained, "so we brought Christmas to you." "Mrs. Patterson is in on it," Sarah added. "She said we could have a little gathering here after your shift. She's coming too around noon." I felt tears threatening as I finally got the door open. "You didn't have to do this." "We wanted to," Dr. Russell said simply. "You've inspired a lot of us this year, Naomi. Your resilience, your work ethic." Once inside, they set about transforming the coffee shop. Jake had brought a small ham and homemade mac and cheese. Sarah produced a bottle of sparkling cider and plastic champagne flutes. Frank and Edith had baked cookies and brought a portable speaker for Christmas music. As I made coffee for everyone, I watched this unlikely group chatting and laughing together. None of them had known each other before today. They had come together because of me, because of connections I'd made since starting my new life. "Before we eat," Sarah said when everything was ready, "I have some news." She pulled an envelope from her bag and handed it to me. "The magazine was so impressed with your last piece that they want to offer you a paid internship starting in January. It's only 15 hours a week, but it's in your field and it could lead to something permanent after you graduate." I stared at the official letter, unable to find words. And Dr. Russell added, "The scholarship committee has reviewed your application and is offering you an expanded scholarship for next semester. It's still not full tuition, but it's more than before." "I don't know what to say," I managed finally. "Say you'll accept," Sarah suggested with a smile. "Say you'll keep writing and growing and sharing your voice with the world." After we ate, exchanged small gifts, and sang off key carols, my impromptu Christmas family helped clean up before departing with warm hugs and promises to check in soon. Jake stayed behind to help me close the shop. "Got plans for the rest of the day?" he asked as we put away the last of the dishes. I hesitated, then made a decision. "Actually, I think I might send my parents a Christmas card." He raised an eyebrow. "Really, I thought things were still rough there." "They are," I admitted. "But today made me realize something. Family isn't just who you're born to. It's also who you choose and who chooses you. I have that now with all of you, which makes it a little easier to try to heal things with my birth family on my own terms." "Baby steps." Jake nodded. "Exactly. A card this year. Maybe dinner next year. Setting boundaries doesn't have to mean cutting people off forever. It just means protecting yourself while leaving the door cracked open for them to do better." That night in my quiet apartment, I wrote a simple card to my parents. I didn't pretend everything was fixed. I didn't make promises I wasn't ready to keep. I simply told them about my day, about the unexpected gathering, about the internship and scholarship. I told them I was finding my way. At the end, I wrote, "I'm learning that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or erasing consequences. It means freeing myself from the weight of anger so I can move forward. I'm not ready to come home yet, but I'm not closing that door forever either. We all have healing to do individually and together. I hope in the new year we can start that process slowly and with new respect for each other's boundaries." The healing wouldn't happen overnight. Madison might never fully understand the impact of her actions. My parents might struggle to change patterns established over decades. But for the first time, I felt truly at peace with my decision to leave, to start over, to demand more for myself. My journey from hurt to healing had really just begun, but I was no longer walking it alone. I had found my voice, my strength, and my chosen family along the way. The path ahead might still be uncertain, but I was facing it with newfound confidence and clear boundaries. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family members who couldn't see your worth? What helped you find your strength in difficult family situations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about finding your path through life's challenges. Remember that sometimes the family we create can be just as important as the family we're born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps anyone feeling overlooked or undervalued. Know that you deserve to be seen, heard, and respected.